Atlantis of the Neanderthals. By Peter Jakubowski. Canada, February 2014. Introduction. I would like to tell you a true story which does not happen to everyone and before all, not daily, and so could be also interesting for many people, because we all are taking a part in the story. One can experience such a history only once in the life because it lasts just lifelong. With me there were the last nearly 40 years, until I was finally ready to write down the most important steps in the development of the history for the present one and for the future generations. Still a few years ago, when I wanted to tell something from my story to one of my friends, he asked me with a perceptible terror in his voice, "Whom interests physics? Nobody. The people want to read rather something like crime novels or gossip. These are the interesting stories." At that time I have agreed with him and stopped to talk about the story for a longer time. Now, however, I am already retired and my perspective has changed. For a while, I thought that now I actually do not need at all to explain something about my physics, because I have finished my life project. It is accomplished. The discovery is concluded, published, and cannot be got rid of any more from the world. And what is still more satisfying, the consequences of the existence of the second star in our solar system are perceptible everywhere, in our cosmic hierarchy extending into the far universe, in our solar system with Venus in its center of mass, on the Earth with her global cooling becoming stronger and quicker from year to year, and in our own bodies with their bioresonances ruled by the same cosmic hierarchy of our Sun. The consequences of the unified physics applied to our own life are even obvious for every layman, if one only knows what one must pay attention to. Although these consequences alone are already very interesting, though often even amusing or almost unbelievable, the history which I am going to tell in this book is rather a mix of the consequences with the description of my personal way to the discovery and with my reflections after it was done. But you have nothing to fear. Although I have to use the word physics now and again, you can read the book without any preparation, even if you have hated the traditional physics at school, like most youngsters still do today. I am going to tell you the story in a form of a comparison of my own knowledge, being based on the new paradigm in science, with the best knowledge I have ever read about in a single book, but still resting on the old paradigm of the 20th century. Although it is not quite true. The author of this chosen book, Colin Wilson, 1931 to 2013, he died just a few weeks ago, a writer, critic and philosopher, was already a very innovative researcher, the mainstream science far ahead. Our chosen book here is one of his recent books, maybe the one most challenging the adherers of the old paradigm. It is entitled, Atlantis and the Kingdom of the Neanderthals, 100,000 Years of Lost History, published with Bear & Company, Rochester, Vermont, 2006. The title alone is already a provocation for the traditionally thinking scientists. Atlantis, this almost mythological phantom of the Platonic literature, should become a serious research object? And its connection to the long ago extinct, primitive Neanderthals, what should it mean? Maybe a joke? Nothing like that. Colin Wilson is very serious in his book, and very optimistic that he is on the right way to some very intriguing solution of the Atlantis mystery. In the Telegraph obituary we read among others. He was regularly criticized for making sweeping generalizations and for his habit of quoting from memory without reference to his sources, but he remained unshakably convinced of his own talent. Most criticism is based purely on incomprehension, he said. I have long accepted that the chief difficulty with my work is that it covers too wide a field. Even sympathetic readers can't see the wood for the trees. Colin was a melancholic youth who toyed with the idea of suicide on more than one occasion. In 1947 he wrote in his diary that he had almost taken cyanide in the school lab, but that he had had a moment of vision and decided to devote all free time to the pursuit of excellence. He left his job at the school and went to work in the Leicester office of the collector of taxes. Influenced by the work of George Bernard Shaw, he was resolved to become a writer. Nobody is able to copy a life of someone else, for example, in order to repeat this person's greatest achievements. Nevertheless, one is able to learn from the person's history and to use the constructive experiences in any similar situation in one's own life. Probably this combination of the very early interest in science, and the fascination with Shaw has motivated Wilson to become an author of more than 100 books. I remember very well, I have read at least one of them, From Atlantis to the Sphinx, 1997, and was positively excited with his wide field of interest. At the end of 2013, I have finally decided to write my most challenging book, Our Illusory Physics, The Whole Modern Physics is Just an Illusion. So I have uncoupled myself from the outside world, far away from my daily life, going for 3 months to Mississauga, near Toronto, in Canada, because I wanted to collect my ideas without no influence of any other side. I have turned my news consumption down almost to zero, and so happened that I did not know about Wilson's death till the day of writing this introduction. Nevertheless, as I was ready with my book, I wanted to compare my own ideas with those of some other writing people, and my first choice was the publishing house of the Inner Traditions, because the newest book by Ervin Laszlo, The Self-Actualizing Cosmos, The Akasha Revolution in Science, including my own contribution, is going to be published in February 2014 exactly by this publisher, sitting, oddly enough, in Rochester, Vermont and in Toronto. When looking into the spring-summer 2014 catalog of this publisher, almost the first position was just the above-cited book by Colin Wilson about the Atlantis and the Neanderthals. It was obvious for me to choose this reference at first. I have obtained a copy of the book on January 22, 2014, and immediately started to read it. The book is fantastic, full of new interesting information. However, I also immediately knew, I have to correct it as soon as possible, because Wilson's information in many important points is still based upon the old scientific paradigm. Just 3 days later I was sitting and collecting the material to the new book and searching for a biography of Colin Wilson. And I become aware of his death just 7 weeks ago. So I can only say, thank you Colin very much for your book. I will try to do my best for your reader, to bring them across the paradigm's boundary into the science of the 21st century. You do not need my help anymore, now you know everything from the first hand. And Colin Wilson gave me yet another support to my own research. To die in the age of 82 confirms the cosmic hierarchy statistical norm for a masculine Homo sapiens sapiens. The principal purpose of the present book is to follow the most important idea of the Colin Wilson's book, the connection of the human species living on the Earth in the times of Atlantis with the genus of the Neanderthals, improving however the details in those points, where the new way of thinking is necessary, in order to make the whole idea compatible with the observations and the best available theory. The second purpose is to allow you, the reader, to feel by yourself the extraordinary fascination with the unified scientific description of the world around us, and to make the understanding of your own private world better than ever. Would the story be useful for you? I hope so. I was never owned by the idea to be better than the other scientists. But I absolutely wanted to get on nature closer and more understandingly than all my teachers could teach me this. So, of course, I was forced to cook up my own physics, in order to become engrossed in the secrets of nature deeper than anybody before. Independently of your actual profession, you have had probably several times an aha experience, if you have suddenly understood an apparently complicated thing. Try to remember such a situation from your own life and remember the feeling of the luck, or at least the excitement which surely was connected with this new experience. Now, imagine that you can experience such a strong feeling much more frequently, practically any time if you approach nature with the new understanding. Then you will also understand me, why I cannot hold my enthusiasm only for myself alone, and why I have sat down to write this book. Take you some free time to read in. Maybe the enthusiasm also jumps on you, what I wish you very warmly.